Hey everyone, it's Coach Lori,
And Coach Tim.
and today we're going to talk a little bit about what I do with my health clients to get them totally healed up and feeling their best. So you have questions for me?
I have some questions for
Okay.
you today. So
Here we go.
what kind of answers we get. So first question is just tell me a little bit about what the difference is between traditional medicine, going to the doctor, and what it is that you do.
Okay. So the people that come to me for help and how I found this all out through helping myself is that most of the time when we go to the doctor, um, there's symptoms that are bothering us from the illness, right? Like, oh, my thyroid's bad, but I have headaches and weight gain and all this stuff. And they give you a prescription for a medication that does the thyroid's work from it without ever fixing the problem. So I like to get to the root of the problem. I want to know what's causing the metabolic dysfunction or dysfunction with an organ, and I fix that. And then from there, the symptoms go away. And it's just, in my opinion, the best way to handle it. Treat the problem instead of putting a band-aid over the symptom. Yep.
So you mentioned you used some of this to solve some of your own problems that you've had. And
Yeah.
so what kind of problems did you have and what did the traditional medical system do for you?
Yeah. Literally my whole life, no one in the medical field, the doctors that I saw, could provide any help. Always had an issue with weight, really horrible periods, then PCOS, fertility issues, and then later in life, thyroid issues. And then when I entered into perimenopause, those issues, and nobody ever helped me. So I sort of had to figure it out on my own. And the one time I got sick enough from getting parasites that again was misdiagnosed through Kaiser, that's been my health insurance for most of my life. I found a functional doctor, and it was from working with her remotely because she was about an hour and a half away from me. That I found that there's this whole other world of, I don't even want to call it medicine. Let's just call it healing. There's this whole other world of like actually healing the problems in the body and feeling good to where you get to a point where you didn't even know how bad you felt daily because you're kind of used to it until you woke up one day healed and feeling like $1,000,000, right? So those are all the different problems that I've gotten myself through. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So could you contrast the difference between what Kaiser took you through and what this healthcare person took you through on that?
So basically, from like 12 on, any kind of like menstrual cycle issues and pain, just illness, was like their solution was birth control. Like, what? Why are people putting 12-year-olds on birth control? Because the periods are so bad. Okay, well, why are they bad? It doesn't matter. Just take the birth control, right? And then decades of being on that, or a decade and a half, caused more issues with fertility later. Versus when I work with people now, just personal training clients or health clients that come to me, they're having a hard time conceiving. We check the fasting insulin, we check the fasting glucose, we look at any health issues that have been diagnosed through a doctor, and we start rolling back that insulin resistance that is the driver of PCOS and endometriosis and fertility. So by getting to what causes these problems with women's, ovaries, in a basic term, like we get to the root of it and we clean it up through diet, supplementation. I can run, your genomics and see if there's any like genetic mutations that are really affecting things, and then have a picture and then start chipping away at it from the first symptom, letting me know what was the problem first, and then just running that out until we get you all healed up and on the course of where you want to be in life.
Okay, um, so you contrasted kind of the differences and where did you kind of start unwinding your problems? What was kind of the central piece that ended up helping you kind of work out of it? Because you went through a few different layers of
We
things.
went through a few layers, definitely. So once I learned some of the basics of just functional medicine from my functional doctor, I started looking at how things work in the body, right? And I feel like I like to simplify things. I'm not going to throw out jargon and like big words that you have to Google when I'm talking to you. And I'm like, how how amazing that everything is connected and one thing has a chain reaction to the other. And with that concept, I believe we used a whiteboard, right? And I made like a timeline and I started pulling from like whether it was the college institute, just doctors in other countries. Medicine is not politicized in other parts of the world. So we start to see where doctors can think outside the box freely and start like getting to the root cause of problems. And I started noticing how like from like a child, like less than 5 all the way up, things just kept progressing and getting worse. So that timeline was where I was like, oh my gosh, we have a lot to gather here and put together in my late 30s. Um, and that was the beginning of like the last 11 years of how I looked at my health and my problems. So again, rewinding a few years, it was that moment where I completely gave up on healthcare. Was because of COVID. I was like 2.5 years behind on just an annual pap smear. Like now they don't even do them every year, which is crazy given all the cancer in my family since they're so like genetic bound. Cancer is genetic only. They still make you wait a while. So I got in and I'm talking to her, and it's a woman, so you'd think she'd be more understanding of what I'm saying. And I'm like, there's something wrong with me. Maybe I have cancer. My cycles are different. I'm feeling weird. I'm like sweating, this and that. And her answer was, I should be on antidepressants. And I'm not sad, other than I'm scared that I might have cancer because my body's completely changing and everything's different, what felt like overnight. And that's when I realized like they really have no clue what's going on. And then I think she was like, just lose 5 pounds and see if your cycle evens out. And then I'm like, well, how do you want me to do that? Because it's really hard for me to lose weight and nothing seems to be working. And she's like, well, just eat less. And then you're like, okay. That that was 2023, 22. I don't remember. Like the whole COVID thing started in 2020. So it's probably middle or end of 2022. And that was the last time I went to a doctor for anything other than just a full, like annual checkup or whatever that I hadn't done in quite some time last year, which was another disaster where they're just like, there's no understanding of things. So it's, yeah, that was how I figured stuff out on my own and knew that I had to figure things out that I had not quite gotten to as it started with me, right?
Yeah, that's very interesting. You went back to the timeline to start. So, what do you find now working with other people as far as how important is their timeline of when, this developed or that developed in unraveling what needs to be done moving forward?
That's a great question. So, as I learned more of biology and how things work in the body through MetFix, and I've known about insulin resistance for quite some time, but now I understand how things work at a cellular level. So I will talk to people and ask them when things started going south for them, right? So a lot of people in their late 20s felt a change in their early teens, like the college years, freshman 15, gaining that weight, all the different things that sort of shifted for them. And then weight was different, body composition, health problems, sick all the time. And we go back, we just keep rolling it back until we find like, you're right, this is when things really started to change for me. And I find that to be important because, like, insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction are the driver of chronic disease and illness and autoimmune disease by inflammation and that. And it's all connected. So that's why the timeline I feel is so important. And that's why I spend as much time as I need to after giving a client an intake form to sit and talk with them in person or remotely to really like jog the memory because we forget, right? Like, if I was like, hey, when did your health start to go south? And you're like, well, let me take out my injury from American Ninja Warrior. Like the thing, there's different things that have happened in your life, but we're talking about like the health where you didn't bounce back from something or your body composition changed, right? So
Right.
those conversations and spending time with you, not the 5 minutes with the doctor, is really imperative.
Right. So, yeah, and I know that you've had some things with the metabolic issues, but then you had some confounding issues with parasites and different things like that. So, what happens
That's
to the
why.
timeline when other confounding factors contribute to the overall problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of things. So my situation was fairly unique. Most people don't go canoeing in Northern California and get H. pylori and Giardia and then have doctors miss it for 9 months. But it was that moment where my system tanked, right? The inflammation and the stress threw me into autoimmune thyroid, which was Hashimoto's. Okay. So by looking back and seeing how my body had responded to different things, I had already been to a place of clean eating and understanding health and had dropped 100 pounds by the time that had happened. But as the weight started coming back on and I was sick and tired, and literally like there were days that I didn't want to get off the couch, but you have to, right? Parents don't get sick days like that. Like we find some way to push through, but at the expense of taking care of ourselves. So by understanding, that nutrition and supplements and things that I'm deficient in help me get healthy, I had to go to that again and pull from that with now the deeper understanding of the functional medicine side. Like what do these functional GI tests, metabolomics, and DNA tests tell me about myself or my clients that give me a better insight? And the puzzle now has like 20 more pieces added into it, right? We've almost completed the puzzle at that point. So that was just another point in a timeline that reminds us that health is not just this like endpoint, like, oh my gosh, I did it. I lost 100 pounds and I'm off all my meds and I'm healthy. And then life's like, no, another curveball, and then how do you come back from that with what you already know? And it always comes back to what I'm putting in my mouth is building my health or tearing it down, right? Um, my sleep, how I react to stress, the vitamins that I need to stay on forever because of my MTHFR mutations. I have both of the common ones, right? So these are the points within the timeline that are just as important as the first one. If somebody has more than one big defining moment, we definitely talk about that.
So you said you have supplements based on the MTHFR gene
Mhm.
on that. So how do you know that those are supplements that you need?
So as a practitioner with Designs for Health, I I used all those supplements through my functional doctor to get rid of the parasites and then deal with the Hashimoto's and actually heal that. I don't call it remission. There's no sign of it, and there hasn't been for what 9 years. It's been a long time. It's like nothing's wrong, right? Everything's great. So then Designs for Health released spotlight testing, which is fantastic because I'm not an MD and I cannot order the big tests, or I couldn't back then for a GI test for gut health and permeability and microbials, all the different things we look for when we're trying to heal leaky gut. And I can't run a metabolic pathway test on you or a DNA test on you, but now I can. So when my client or myself or my family runs the test, the metabolomics is urine, the GI is obviously a stool test, and the genomics is a swab in the mouth. Or if you've done 23andMe, it's significantly less money to send me your raw data and upload it into my genomics data punk base, which is pretty cool. And then what happens is it gives me 14 pages of all these different categories and answers, regardless of the test. And then there's 8 big categories for the DNA. And then I get to see what's going on in your body. So if on a metabolomics test, you're completely tanked in the Krebs cycle, your B vitamins are in the toilet, your tryptophan is low, your cortisol is high, and your oxidative stress is high. And then I look at your genomics and I'm like, oh, you have the MTHFR gene, so you don't methylate B vitamins. This is why no matter how good you're doing, you're not getting the methylated Bs in. And so you never really have energy, right? People are like, oh my God, I'm always tired. And I think there was a time when you and Ashley would make fun of me. So I'm like, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. But I was tired. I didn't have that little piece of the puzzle. So once you get on the P5P and the methylcobalamin and the methylated folate, someone like me does not complain about being tired. I might be behind on sleep and sleepy, but I correct myself and don't just say I'm tired because I actually have energy now. So those tests allow me to hone in on what you need without just guess and check, which functional medicine before a lot of these testing that were available to us was really like guess and check because that's all you could really do. Like, was it leaky gut? Oh, is it methylated this? Is it that? And now you're like, this is what it is. And you can see that this genetic mutation expressed itself from the way you've been living, what you've been eating, what you've not been doing, what you've been doing. And it really brings it full circle and takes all the guesswork out.
So can't I just go to the drugstore and get my one a day and get it all?
No. Yes, no, no. There's so many things, and to just simmer it down because no big words, right? A multivitamin is a really cool idea because it's a little bit of everything, but it's not really enough of one anything for any person, right? Like it's this, it's like saying, well, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Like that's super cute, but no. So you might not need two-thirds of that little bit of other things in the vitamins, right? You're not getting essential aminos, you're not getting all these other things in there. And so I find the multivitamin to be a waste of money. And I said it because I've never met anyone that just took a one a day and felt good about it. And then there's places like Costco, and I bring this up because my patients will ask, "Hey, is this a good melatonin?" And I'm like, "Why is there wheat in it?" Like things, common allergens. Why is there dairy and Zyrtec? Like all these different things that people want to take have a lot of fillers in it, and I don't know the source of their ingredients. I don't know if they're high quality. I don't know if they're using the toxic to some part of the population B12 or the good B12. So that's why I really think that the least expensive way long term to take exactly what you need and the dose you need is to take these tests and know what you need and why, and then know the difference from someone like me or your practitioner that explained to you why B6 should be in P5, P4, right? Then we're getting the most bang for our buck. And it's cheaper in the long run too, because you're taking care of yourself. And the worst thing in the world is having huge medical bills because you're sick all the time, right? So by knowing what you need and taking the right form of it, you're kind of, there's no guarantees in life. Life happens, but you're doing everything you can to lead the healthiest life for you, what you need specifically. No one a day.
No one a day. So that just sounded so simple.
It did. Easy
But,
box.
just one thing is you mentioned the methylated B. So is methylated B something you find in a lot of those drugstore vitamins?
You know what's crazy? No. And they usually use the cyanocobalamin, which is the one that's toxic to a lot of people, and that's showing up in a lot of like pre-workouts now too. So I'll put that out there as a warning. Like, look at what you're taking for your pre-workout and make sure if it's B12, it's methylcobalamin, methyl. Look for that in front of it after the B12 to know that you have the right one, right? So it's again, people that are putting together supplements for pre-workout or protein shake or multivitamins, they're trying to get the most in there for the least amount of money to make the most from it. So you're probably not getting the best ingredients. They're not tested and triple tested or independently tested. And these are things that you should be aware of when you're purchasing vitamins and supplements.
And so the methylation process, as I understand, it's something that our body does to be able to absorb those things. And for
Yeah.
a lot of people, we aren't able to break it down and
Yeah.
absorb it correctly if it's not in the right form.
Yeah.
And that's why it becomes important, because otherwise you have brightly colored pee that looks good, but other than that,
And honestly, like when I would take B vitamins, like the hard pressed pills or Nature's Made or whatever, I would get a stomach ache, and it would be like fluorescent yellow pee. I never had any energy. And when I take my supplements, the P5P, the LMTHR, 8,500 milligram, the high dose of methylated folate, and then the tricobalamin is just a lozenge I take. Like my urine is never bright. So, and I never get sick from it. And I always have energy. It's so central to the Krebs cycle, the ATP that our body makes from a cellular level to produce energy that gets us through the day, right?
yeah. So coming back off of that to more about what you're doing with your clients. So, what are some of the key things that you found uh, that you've been able to help some clients with? What are some of the key areas where
Yeah.
you've made a difference where maybe the doctors were not having much luck?
Yeah. So we'll just start with weight because excess weight on the body, and I'm not talking like vanity pounds, but people that are carrying more weight, it affects our health overall. So I'll take people that are really stuck and they can't lose weight. And then I do that magic blood test that is the suspected insulin resistance. And we'll see that they're insulin resistant. And that can go on a while until you become diabetic from that. And then diabetes cascades into all the other illnesses, right? So I am really, I'll say it, I'm good at helping people find a way of eating, explaining why we need to do what we do, get them on track, and then, remind them that I'm not taking away all your favorite things for your whole life, but we're cleaning out a bit of a trash system, right? Our system is a little thrash from the alcohol and the parties and when we're eating and when we're not eating and we're not sleeping. And so I take people that feel like they can't lose weight because, oh, it's genetics, because we get that a lot, right? Oh, you're genetically predisposed to being obese. Or my favorite answer from a doctor, you're obese because you're just lazy and you eat too much. Not really. So, explaining how things work at a cellular level, explaining why the carbs, the sugar, and the polyunsaturated fatty acids are like the trifecta of driving obesity, because you never feel full when you eat those foods, right? So it's that metabolic reset for people, men and women, anyone of any age. It's possible for all of them if they prescribe to what I'm telling them to do, right? I love that. I love rolling back autoimmune disease. That's one of my favorite too. There's a lot of new ones out that I've not really heard of. And if there's something I don't know about, I'm not going to tell you I can fix it until I've really researched it and looked into it and thought about it good and hard. What's another one? Autoimmune, oh, hormones, right? Especially men and women. Low testosterone in men and women has drastic effects in us equally for different reasons. So, knowing that if someone is in a state of adrenal fatigue, if they're constantly stressed, the cortisol is high, and those adrenals, cute little glands, are just pumping overtime and about to burn out. That is what's keeping men's testosterone super low and women's sometimes undetectable, or throwing them into more estrogen dominance as that testosterone and progesterone sink. So once we cure the adrenal issue and give you some DHEA, just the supplement to bring the testosterone levels back and free test back to normal, it's a great way to do that without needing hormone replacement therapy. Because hormone replacement therapy isn't for everyone, right? Some people do get sick, especially if they have the MTHFR gene and aren't supporting that through the methylated vitamins, the omega 3s, the different types of magnesium, things like that. So I understand how all that's connected to. Those are like my top three things that I work with people on.
Yeah. And I understand that speaking of hormones, you've done a lot of research into menopause lately.
Yes. Perimenopause specifically, especially since it could be like the 7+ year journey. All that means is pre-menopause. Menopause is when you've gone 12 months without a period and you're done. And now you're in a whole new, playing field of life for women. Back in the day, and I remember this from a Golden Girls episode when I was like 10, I'm not kidding, where Blanche first thinks she's pregnant because she hasn't had a period. And then she comes back from the doctor crying because she's just been told, no, you're actually in menopause. And her quote unquote life is over. She's going to stay in her room and cry, wear black all day like she's in mourning. And I remember like, oh my God, sounds so horrible, right? And then you hit your early 40s, like in my case, and things are subtle. And then you hit your mid to late 40s and you're like, we're in the throes of this and we don't need an antidepressant, really. So the effects of foods with perimenopause, sleep, things like meditation, why an infrared sauna with some red light therapy in it can be so helpful. Um, how to modify workouts a bit. Like, we own a CrossFit gym, so I'm working out hard 6 days a week, if not seven, lifting heavier than I ever have, doing that. But not everybody is at that place. So knowing where to take my clients on their workouts to match what we're changing with their food and supplements and stress level is everything in that journey. So yeah, lots of research on that. And so far, fantastic results across the board. Again, when they put the work into what I'm telling them to do, right? It's all a great theory and it's beautiful and it'll work, but I'm here to support you, but I only see you a few hours a week. So you put in the work and you're going to be happy with the results.
So yeah, and then before we close out, there's one thing that I wanted to check on, and that is you recently had a very interesting story, somebody's gallbladder.
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't, I mean, we talked about it again, but a few years ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was one of my clients that I was working with. I love this whole family. They were members at our gym and then they moved about 30 minutes away. But they would come back to me with health questions because they remembered at our gym I talk about nutrition and health, and they were disenchanted with, again, Kaiser, the medical field in general. And it was her husband, and she's like, please let me know if you can help. He has 3 gallstones and they want to take out his gallbladder like next week or something. It was like ASAP, ASAP. Like we had gotten through the COVID stage where hospitals were like shut down for anything but that. And now like surgeries, whether they were necessary or not, were really ramping up. And I was like, okay, give me 5 weeks. And I put him on paleo for eating because that seems to be one of the easiest ways to eat when you're going from the standard American diet to something that doesn't feel like so completely drastic. Like I'm eating, like people say, twigs and dry chicken breast, blah, right? It's not like that. Paleo is wonderful. It sucks the inflammation out of the body. I prescribed alicillin. That's like what I call a natural penicillin, right? Without the side effects of killing off everything good in the microbiome. And then there's a liver gallbladder supplement that supports the gallbladder and the liver. And it's also important for people that have lost their gallbladder to replenish that whole bile that's not being made anymore with the gallbladder gone. And then I put them on a digestive enzyme and I believe a probiotic. I'd have to look back because it was just her file. I'm just doing her a favor because he's not even my client at this point. So maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, they do another ultrasound. 2 gallstones are gone, and one is so tiny it's like just about on its way out. So he didn't have to lose a vital organ, and I love that because I hear stories, and I remember when they found years ago that not remember the nodule on my thyroid, and it was nondescript, and we can take the thyroid out. I'm like, God made no mistake. Like everything in this body, if we can keep it, we should keep, right? And when we save a vital like your gallbladder, which your liver is your best friend, like they need each other. My thyroid, my whole endocrine system, like the hub, right? By not taking that out and just getting rid of the nodules by cleaning up all the inflammation and all that. It's like these are the things that really keep my passion on fire for all this because everybody deserves a chance at being healthy without being like butchered and cut apart or on medications that tank other organs. And that's just my thought on the whole thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that just kind of rings for me with all of that is that a lot of times we find ourselves in a place where the experts give us very little to no hope.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when we look outside of their bubble and what they've been taught and what they know, there is hope.
Oh, so much.
Sometimes we just need to look in a different bucket to find
Yeah.
that. So I think that's something that really rings for me is that it's something where we have, that opportunity to kind of change the viewpoint and take care of problems that can't be solved in one system, but they can be solved in a different system sometimes. And
Yeah.
so that's really really
Yeah.
cool to be able to do that. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with everyone before?
No, but Tim
Close it out?
brought up a great point. Like, don't lose hope. I look back and I'll tell you through all the different health things that were just like completely ridiculous, like the parasites. We were like, why is this happening? And I used to get really angry and be like, God, what are you doing right now? Like, why is it like one thing after another? And then I finally got to a point, and we had talked about this, and you helped me get to this point, was like, had I not lived through this, I could not help all these other people. So don't lose hope. And whether you come to me for help or find someone amazing and you're part of the world, there's hope. So don't lose it. You deserve to be healthy and you can be healthy and you control your health so much more than you're told. So don't forget that.
Never give up.